You're watching Moms Matter virtual episode at Ever Talk TV. I am your host, Shirin Yadigar, and I have the beautiful and talented Erica Cobb, who is a social commentator and correspondent and co-host of the Daily Blast Live. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
So we are all experiencing a very sad time in history for many people. And quite frankly, I feel like I brought you on the show because you're so honest and so moderate and grounded that you might help the white community navigate how we can be there for all of our friends and relatives in the Black community. So as a non-Black woman myself, it's scary for me because I feel like I want to reach out, but I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. Right. And I'm hearing that from so many of my friends, Shirin, we want to reach out. We want to be there. Everyone's got the right intentions, but they're so afraid of saying the wrong thing. So my question for you is, what can we do and what can we say that can be helpful during this time?
Well, first, I just want to tell people because, I am on a live show every day and we're talking about breaking and trending news, and there isn't a buffer. And I, too, am always afraid that I might say the wrong thing. We're getting information in the moment. Sometimes we don't even have time to process it. And when I speak, I'm speaking with the best intentions, but maybe I don't always say something formulated perfectly, or it gets taken out of context, or it comes out wrong. But I can't just stop speaking. And I think that that's what's really important for people to understand is you really just have to lead by intentions, your best intentions, because no one is capable of saying all the right things at the right time. And especially when you're talking to people who you have a true connection with, I always say, I know your heart. I understand what you're communicating to me, and I appreciate you even wanting to communicate that to me. Now, I know it gets a little different when you're talking about social media because you're putting things out there. You're putting your thoughts and expressing yourself to people who may not know you personally. But this is an uncomfortable time for everyone. And when things are uncomfortable, that's when change happens. So I think it's important that people take time to kind of sit in this uncomfortableness, because a lot of us have always been here and we have to learn how to navigate that uncomfortable side. So I think that for people who aren't used to putting themselves out there and being vulnerable in that way, you might just have to get used to being a little bit vulnerable, because that's the way that we all learn.
100%. And I think that as a woman who, I'm a white woman who feels like, okay, so I have all the right intentions and I want to help bring social justice. But the truth is that I have the privilege of reading about racism and not experiencing it. And I think what I'm hearing from my followers and my readers is we really want to be allies, right? We want to be there, but what do we do? How can we be allies to the Black community right now?
So I'm in an interesting situation myself because I am a Black woman from the west side of Chicago originally. I grew up in a predominantly Black community. And then my family moved to the suburbs when I was about 10, 11. But I went back and forth. We went to church and I stayed at my grandmother's house on the west side of Chicago. And then my school was predominantly white. So I had to learn how to code switch very early on in my life. I am married to a man who is Italian Icelandic from Canada. So when we have these conversations, it's very interesting because he always wants to focus on what can he do as a leader of industry? What steps can he put into place in order to make sure that there's not only equality, but that there's a chance for opportunity in places and spaces where those opportunities don't exist. But then he also feels this need to say, of course, I'm an ally. I believe Black Lives Matter. But his focus is on where am I capable of making the greatest change? So I think that everyone needs to lead from where their strengths are. You know, if you are a person who has the opportunity to create spaces and places for people in terms of jobs, education, housing, then those are your messages. That's where your strength is. So if you're someone who's like, there is a disparity in this particular school district, I'm a mom who recognizes there needs to be more diversity here, then that's your messaging because that's what you know. I think a lot of people try to lead with what everyone else is doing. What everyone else is doing isn't for you. And what everyone else is doing may not be truly something that they're going to continue to do or that their heart space is in. So if it's something that you know and you feel really confident about, then start there.
That's great advice. I think where we're all confused is that how do we jump in? But if we just stick to what we know, I mean, that's really great advice. And as leaders in our own community, in our industries, and as a mom, we really can make change. And now is the time. I mean, we are all here. We're feeling it. And I would hate for this to be a trend that then passes because we are all so invested in really wanting to make the change. And I see that you've been posting a lot about voting. So if you want to send a message out to everybody right now about voting, what do you want to tell our viewers?
Well, so the topic came up. One, obviously, I'm always telling people to vote. Like I'm always passing that message. It's very important. But the reason why it became such a hot button issue this week is because of the voting suppression that we saw where people were standing in line for 4, 5, 6 hours just trying to cast their ballot. Now, it's important for people to understand that me as a Black woman, I've learned about voter suppression, knew what voter suppression was probably since the age of 5. It was just a tasteful conversation. A lot of people are a very captive audience for the very first time, which is how we ended up here. I mean, if it weren't for COVID pandemic and the lockdown, then we wouldn't have had the captive audience to witness the killing of George Floyd and be outraged by it. I mean, keep in mind, before George, there was Trayvon Martin, there was Breonna Taylor, there was Tatiana Jefferson, all of these names. And because people were really in a place where they were paying attention, then that's how change happened or is starting to happen. Right. So the same thing with voter suppression. It's so important that people go out and vote. People want to vote. People want to have their voices heard. But like Bernice King just said, tweeted just a couple days ago, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King, if voting wasn't important, then why are they trying so hard to suppress your vote? And that's the question we all should be asking. Like I'm in a situation in a neighborhood where if I go to vote, I either drop my ballot off or mail it in, drop it off, or it takes me maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Most people are in that situation. But when you go into Black and brown communities in this country, it is no different than 1968. Every single stop, there's someone trying to hinder people from voting, make people so frustrated that they don't want to vote. So when you see that, you need to identify that and be an ally in that situation. Call it out on your social media. If you're close to that neighborhood, go out there and support those who are standing in line. People brought sandwiches and drinks and all sorts of things, but we shouldn't have to be giving Subway for people to cast their ballot. And we should be questioning these things.
100%. And this is the time, and changing the system is the key. And so what I'm hearing from you is, being an ally, there are so many different ways where we can all get involved and we can really make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Start to ask yourself, who is actually manning these voting places? Who is there? Maybe I would be a better person to be there than the people who are there. Who's responsible for the organization? Who's responsible for testing the equipment? There needs to be some sort of shepherding or at least an oversight by people who are truly allies.
You're incredible. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time here, but I want you to leave us with one thought or one thing that you want all of us to take away today that we can really do, that we can be a part of the community, and that we can really make change. If there's a message that you want to share with everyone who's watching today, what's your message, Erica?
I think it's really important for people to understand that we aren't going back. So it's a matter of how we're going to move forward together. And I say we're not going back definitively because so many of us feel like we are finally being seen and being heard. People are really identifying what the breaks in our government, of our system, of our society are. We've seen the wizard, so we can't close the curtain. So we have to make a collective, unified decision right now of how we're going to keep the momentum going forward. Because the moment that you acknowledge that you see racism and disparity, and then you choose to move on to another issue, it's going to be a bigger problem in society than we've ever seen before.
100%. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being such a moderate voice that will listen to us and that will really help lead the community so that we can help join. And no, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And we are going to break down walls together. And we are going to do everything we can to help bring social justice. So thank you, Erica Cobb, for joining us today. You saw it right here at Moms Matter. Please continue to do all the great work you're doing. And we'll see you all next time right here.